Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spirit Heart Sanctuary. And my date is covered up, but it's I think it's March. Is it 12th? I think so.
13th.
13th, March 13th. Okay, 2016. And today we're going to go into the inner earth, and talk about that a little bit. I think we have talked about it to some degree before, but we're going to get a little more comprehensive and connective to it and see how it relates to us now and what's going on for us and how all these dimensions fit together. And so I first made contact with the inner earth around 1980. And my experiences were so profound. I was having what I would now call remote viewing of the inner earth. That word certainly wasn't in my vocabulary, that term in those days, but that's what it was. I think I might have had a few astral projections there, but mostly it was remote viewing, but very vivid. And I felt so at home in the inner earth. Some people call it hollow earth, but I prefer to say inner earth. Just my little quirk, I guess. And I just felt so connected there and so at home that I just kept going there. And before you know it, I was like wanting to write about it. So I was already doing my work with science and things like that. But the inner earth thing just really, really triggered me. So that's what actually prompted me to begin my first publication, which was The Source. And of course, in those days, again, it was all hard copy. My mother and I took it all. I typed it out on a typewriter. She spell checked it with her own little brain, which used to be an English teacher. And then we took it to Kinko's, and we sat there and made all those copies by hand. And then we took it to the post, put it in the envelopes and stamps, and mailed it all off. So that's the way we did things in those days. But the Source was primarily begun because of my inspiration about the inner earth. Now, after the first few issues, I started talking about other things too, and it developed, and it didn't just stay on inner earth anymore. So, I thought I had opened. The side panel is covered up, and I'm having a little bit of difficulty getting to my other screen because of that. I may have to. Let me see how I can do that because I cannot reach it. Goodness. I'm going to pause for a moment. All right, we're back. I've solved that problem, so here we go. So I'm going to read to you a little bit about the inner earth that I wrote. Actually, this I wrote about 10, 11 years ago. There are many myths and legends attendant to a belief by some through the centuries that the earth contains a natural hollow at its center, and that this hollow exists in another world domain populated by human beings or human-like beings living in a utopian fashion. The vision of the legendary Shambhala is one of such version of this concept. It was widely publicized through esoteric circles in the past that Admiral Byrd briefly flew into the rim of the inner Earth portal at the South Pole in the early part of the 20th century. It was said that he filmed what he saw from the aircraft, a lush vegetation with what appeared to be mammoths grazing on the flora. This silent and very primitive film was shown in theaters around the United States for a short period before the U.S. government put a stop to it. A few people who saw the film at that time were interviewed in the 1950s before their deaths. Whether or not all this actually happened, I do not know. A little over 30 years ago, I began to have my own experiences with the inner earth. And that tells just a bit about what I told you before, so I'm going to skip over that. First, in order to understand what I am perceiving as inner earth, I present the following. According to my insights, we are constantly moving through not only space, but also time and dimension. When we pick up our fork or walk across to the couch or the kitchen, we are changing our time and dimensional zones to some degree. This change for such a small movement is very, very little. Not being a mathematician, I'm unable to give you a real fraction on it, but it is so minute as to affect only a slight adjustment in 1% more or less of the rotation of an atom. Okay, so you're saying, okay, so why is this important? But you see, even on the most subtle levels, it's kind of like homeopathy. The tiniest little amount can affect you more than a lot of it. So it's still important. It's very important that we're actually moving through time and dimension when we just make the slightest movement, even though it's so minuscule. When we travel from New York City to Cairo, we create a greater time and dimensional shift. And I am not addressing the change of established time zones. It is still minute, but it does affect our perceptions. I am sure you have noticed this in taking long-distance journeys, but perhaps thought it was only jet lag and adjusting to another cultural lifestyle around you. Certainly these are contributing factors, but according to my understanding, these additional factors are actually distracting you from the true impact the time dimension shift is having on your biological system. Astronauts experience this with even greater impact, especially in the days of the moon trips. Now let us look at a journey to the inner hollow of this planet with the same perception. The north and south poles of the planet form a vortex portal to the interior. However, this vortex is highly magnetized and warped at the poles of the Earth, and not suited for a simple stroll through the door, so to speak. Markers by surface Earth explorers have been placed at the exact point of north and south in these regions, proclaiming these points as the actual poles. Yet from my view of things, our whole planet, our whole universe, and all its spheres are whirls of energy interacting in various rotations and alignments to form what we experience as solid matter. In this context, the highly magnetic poles warp the energies of our planet along the central axis of the magnetic shell we choose to experience as matter. When we walk or fly over the magnetic poles, and actually I did not realize this when I wrote this, but nobody is flying over the magnetic poles of the planet because they won't allow aircraft to do so. You have to fly around it, which is interesting. We really just are going around the edges of the magnetic whirl. And even if they said, okay, you can fly over it, you wouldn't be. Unless you hit it just right, just the right wave, then you could go in, like maybe Admiral Byrd did. In order to enter, if we must catch the wave just right, as Admiral Byrd must have inadvertently done in the early 20th century. What happens if we do? Suppose you are flying in a plane near the lip of the vortex, and you find a thread in the opening. Obviously, the odds of doing this accidentally are slim, but apparently, if Byrd's story is true, it's not non-existent. What greets you? Munching mastodons? Not necessarily. First of all, just moving inside the lip of the vortex does not place you into the hollow earth. At this very outer region of entry, you would experience, as I believe Byrd must have done, a moving field of space-time through which you could see and experience either the past or the future of this planet. If you knew how to follow the space-time thread through the lip of the vortex, as do ultra and interterrestrial Merkaba vehicles, you would eventually move through the warp zone and into the hollow earth. Here you would find a world that is still slightly removed dimensionally from our own, as it is not only a greater distance from the couch to the kitchen, but it is also much denser and more active magnetic zone, or zones within zones, which amps the whole space-time dimensional shift. There are other ways to reach the interior, through caverns leading to partially natural, partially man-made tunnels. Yet the same shift would take place for individuals making such a difficult journey. Without an inner earth guide, they would probably perish by cellular degeneration as they moved through the erratic magnetic zones. I believe that with help, there have been surface and persons surface Earth persons who have traveled this route to the interior successfully in the past. There are many cavern cities and communities on the way down, yet when the interior is reached, one is presented with a really incredibly beautiful and very diverse world. The dramatic diversity stems primarily from the various and strong magnetic anomalies created by the interior sun at the inner world center, which contains a very specific pulsating magnetic field which affects the environment around it. This lends to the inner world the pseudo qualities of the Earth rotating around its solar sun. There are also quite a lot of differences as well. One may go 5 miles from a dense, lush tropical forest and arrive quite suddenly, almost like walking through a wall, inside a topsy-turvy vortex of ice crystal skies over a barren, permafrost desert. Time-space dimension is very loose in the interior. There are regions that move so freely back and forth through time they are not inhabited except by those who specifically work with and in those time-threading zones. In conclusion, as I stress this, physically traveling into the inner earth as a goal in life is not something I wish to encourage. Being present in this world we live in is far more important. Being aware that many realms compose the one of earthly experience is my message with the whole of spirit mythos. This awareness may help individuals to realize that all these dimensions are also within them, that there's no need to go outside of self to find what you're seeking. In fact, I do not believe it can be found that way. Being in the present moment is where they all come together for each of us, and for the world as a collective whole. And so, let's go and talk about the inner ice canopy a bit, because first, I'm going to come back and share just a little extemporaneously with you here, because I don't have it up on the screen, and I believe I can talk about it sensibly enough. The central sun of the Earth is Thoth calls the atoma, A-T-O-M-A, and we all have an atoma in our bodies. Excuse me. And every planet, every sunset, everything living thing has an atoma, which is a guiding focus center. So we have little suns in us. I'm going to have to take a drink of water, be right back. But let's talk about the central sun atoma. It's a highly magnetically charged field, and I actually wish I had brought up my information on that to read it more concisely, but I didn't, so I'll just sort of wing it here. It's a highly magnetically charged field which pulses, and as it does so, it creates a day and night scenario. It's never entirely dark, but it sort of moves into a cloudy field of semi-twilight, and then it moves out again into a more sunny atmosphere. But surrounding the central sun atoma, you're not getting this huge bright sphere that's blinding you in your eyes in the central sun, because it's so close to you, that would not be practical. So Mother Nature, or whomever, composed it so that there's a cloud field around it, and it's out over the cloud field is an ice canopy. So you're getting, it's a lot like being at the North and South Poles and seeing the aurora borealis, because it's the light particles like that are just fired up with the sun. But this is the inner Earth sun. So you're going to see in the sky, you'll have a certain amount of bluish color, but you're going to have a lot of lights. And when it's daylight, so to speak, the lights will be a little more, pastel-y, and more toned down. But in the twilight time, they're going to be very prominent and very dramatic, like being, at the poles. So then we have something called, what Thoth calls the sapphire mountain, or mount of the sapphire. And he spells that S-A-F-F-I-R-E. It's really kind of hard for me to even, after all these years, to understand what it is. But it's a collection, like a mountain coming up from the concave of the inner Earth. at some point in it. I don't even know how big this thing is, but it's significant. And it's kind of like if you built a sugar candy mountain, like the old song goes. And you have this mountain of soft, soft spun sugar that's coming up, and it's got different colors all sort of mixed in like candy, and it fades and moves. You've seen these out here in New Mexico, those colored desert, the painted desert. It's kind of like that, only it's very, very soft. It's not even sand. It's a soft substance. I'm not sure what it is, and it comes up in a pile that's kind of like a mountain. But at the top of the mountain, you're going to see a little spiraling energy. It's being fed by an electrical, I don't even know if electric is the right word, but a circuitry. And it's coming out of the ice crystalline particles. Really, it's coming out of the central sonatoma. Now, this serves to somehow bring all the energies of the interior world together so that they can function. Remember, with an interior world like that, it's enclosed. So all the energies of it are like, the whole planet would explode if there wasn't some way to manage those energies. And apparently this sapphire mount is a main way of managing them so that, we have a synchronicity between the inner and outer worlds. Now, granted, the inner world is somewhat removed from the outer, but it's not that far removed. It's not a completely different dimension. So there's an effect and there's a presence held between the two worlds. And without these things like the pulsating of the central sonatoma, the ice crystal canopy, then it bleeds off. The energy fields bleed off into this sort of spun sugar mountain or whatever you want to call it. Now, what happens if you're like walking around and you want to get close to this mountain? Well, you can, actually. And it's not something you could climb because it's too soft for that. But people coming near it experience extremely powerful healing. Let's talk a little bit about the people in the inner earth, since we're getting off on this about healing and everything. There's several different types, a lot of different types actually. One are the groups of cultures that have gone into the interior, like the Inca, the Maya, the Aztec, different cultures on our planet who have disappeared from the surface Earth and have gone into the interior world through the tunnels, the portals. And at the time that they went into the interior world, there wasn't such a separation between the two. It was easier just to walk in, more or less, not quite that easy, but closer to it. And I've not heard the stories about how they did it or whatever. That's a topic I've never approached. There's just so much to approach. I didn't get to that. But so you have remnants of these cultures which have pretty well maintained their cultures the way they were originally, not the real primitive spin-offs where they were sacrificing victims and things, but the original illumined ones. And they brought their cultures in long before it got really hairy, because they didn't want to stay with those people when they started taking it downhill, And so they went into the interior. So you have these cultures preserved in all their beauty and glory, when they were really connected to source and light. And it's just beautiful. And then you have ultra beings who come from other worlds and have their stations of light inside the earth as well. You have later periods of people a few here and there who have come through, just individuals, and they've kind of decided where they want to be, if they want to be a part of this group or that or whatever. And all the groups are very interactive and sharing, but there is a secularism involved, because a lot of the idea of the inner earth cultures is to preserve their cultures, but not in an egotistical I'm better than you are way. It's very shared, and they have something that Thoth gave me this name for, and I'm almost embarrassed to say it, because when he gave it to me, and this was back in like 1982 or something, and I said, really, Thoth, you want me to call it that? But the name was Culturama. I know, it sounds like something at Disneyland, but that's what he called it. But I guess he gave it that name because he wanted me to know that it was really big, and it's in a cavern area right under the Grand Canyon. Okay, so it's really accessible from the Grand Canyon. It's not in the interior world. And they have events, they have all the cultures inside the planet. They get together there for various purposes. And they also connect with some surface dwellers who know about this place and who can access it so that they can share with them the experience of the inner earth without these persons having to go all the way into the interior. So there are people that go there apparently from our realm. So they're very sharing and interactive, but they still maintain their own cultures. Now, I remember one thing that I saw when I was there. Well, in remote viewing. And I was way up in the air, so to speak, and I looked down and I saw this statue of a woman lying on her back. She was made out of stone, and she had the left hand, the palm up, sort of by her head, and the right was turned the other direction and down lower by her body, but both palms were turned up. And in each palm was a single pyramid. And I thought, wow, that's cool. And then I realized how high up I was. And I realized that this was huge. Think about the Pyramid of Giza in each hand. And it was, and the arm, you could go inside the arm, and, why they would make something like that, I don't know, but it was very impressive. So that's one thing I saw, for instance. And then my very, very, very favorite place that I've seen so far in the Inner Earth is called the Aura Healing Garden. Well, I say it's called that. Thoth gives me these names. I don't know if that's the name they call it, but the Aura Healing Garden. And that is a place where people go for healing. Now, the Inner Earth beings, it depends, I guess, but they live a very, very long time. But they do have certain needs for healing because they're living in magnetic fields that are very fluctuating. I don't think they get things like cancer or, life-threatening diseases, but they get run down, I guess you could say, and they need some time to refurbish themselves. So the Aura Healing Garden is one of those places, and it's rather large, but it feels cozy there. They're little bungalows and things, and they go there, and nature heals them mostly. They go out and they have these very special plants and trees in this garden that are nurtured there for that purpose, that can interact with the beings and help them heal. And they also have physicians, people, that are present for them, but not like we understand it. They aren't poking you with needles or anything. It's not that kind of a deal. And they have tonal therapy, sound therapy, all these different things. So it's the healing of mind, body, and spirit is really what it's all about. And so, let me see what else I wanted to talk to you about. Just taking a moment here. Okay, I think I did find a little piece here that talks about the crystal veil and the way the sun works. So I'm going to read a little about it. This is out of issue 180, the very first issue of The Source. While the solar orb of our solar system is without atmosphere, suspended in airless space, the central atoma, central sun, is within a field of density at the very heart of the matter sphere of the hollow planet. Within a few miles of the corona, the atmosphere is heavy, that of a thick hydrogen vapor is present, which bursts into illumination. As the Earth, the whole planet, rotates on its axis, variations occur in the density of this vapor, or helia, causing different intensities of light. Between the helia and the interior surface of Subterranea, there exists a form of ice crystal canopy which interacts with the effects of the helia to create beautiful geometric impressions in the ether, and light shows as well. However, the inner veil is somewhat different from the ancient outer crystal canopy. The inner version is not as consistent a layer, but dissipates and reforms its intensity and patterns in the interior sky, as if being created through giant lenses throughout the interior atmosphere. As the atoma sun pulsates, so the intensity of the inner sky veil increases and decreases. Note, these effects of the atoma pulsations on the ice crystal veil is continually warped by other magnetic influences as well, resulting in variations within the ice crystal canopy display. The clouds of the inner canopy consist of a different composition than the ancient outer version. The inner has a greater etheric charge, capacity for interdimensional shift, and contains more hydrogen and oxygen within its water crystals. From 380 of the source, as the solar wind of the Earth atoma moves through the vibrational plane of Earth via the planetary chakras, which line up inside the Earth and not at points on the surface. It must pass through a receiving station within the center of the Earth as analogous to the aorta of the heart. All the lands and seas of Earth are channeled through this subterranean point, located within the hollow of the planet. It is known to the inner inhabitants as the Mount of Sapphire. That's what I was talking to you about, or Mount of Assembly. The actual location of the Sapphire Mount, or rather the point where it densifies to attach itself to the inner planet from the streaming aorta of the heart atoma central sun, is in the center field or travex of the inner planetary terrain. The travex is the point which geocosmically is the center of the interior terra firma, not to be confused with the center of the planet, which is the central sun atoma. The Sapphire Mount, or heap, in the cosmic surveyor's golden mark of the travex, is the cosmic surveyor's golden mark of the travex. In the upper reaches of the inner sky, the sapphire is seen as refracted light, haloing, arching, cascading in the hollow heaven, as it is a glory of color and light, as it pirouettes its aura geocosmically. I'm sorry, I lost my place, which is geocosmically the center of the interior terra firma. Okay, the middle point of the sapphire is denser and less reflective. The lower region of the mount becomes more and more solid as the ice crystal lattices bind into closer formation to create the glacial heap attached to the Earth. This assemblage of ice crystals is focused through a strong magnetic spiral, which with the central sun, using the crystal mount like a conductive coil. I'm sorry I read that so poorly. It's very small print, and as all of you know, I have eye problems, so it was difficult. But anyway, so the sapphire mount is composed of ice crystals. See, I forgot that when I was talking to you about it earlier. But they're ice crystals that are so magnetically charged at varying levels they can become almost solid. So we have the glacier field at the bottom. Oh goodness, now I can't turn that off. All right, everyone. Let's take just a break from my talking so much. And does anyone have any questions or any comments they'd like to make?
I would like to say something, Maya.
Yes.
You know, I've told you that I've been watching David Wilcox, or Wilcox, I don't ever know why his name is pronounced like that. Anyway, with Corey Good, who says he actually went into the inner earth. And what is really interesting is, I know in your articles on that, you describe some of the animals and birds and
Yes.
things that were there. Mm-hmm. And Corey Good talked about it as well, and he described and actually had a picture that somebody had drawn, probably from his memory or something, of the Marie bird.
Oh, wow.
It looked just like it, and it showed the picture, and the caverns.
Whoops. You're cutting out, Drew. Can you? After you said caverns, you started cutting out. Whoops. You're still cutting out, sweetie. Yeah, you're breaking up. Can you regroup? Nope, you're still breaking up. Try replugging your mic or turning. Nope, still breaking. I'm wondering if she's crashing. Okay, she's going to type it. Because I really do want to hear this. The Marie bird. Yes, the Marie bird is something I wrote about. Actually, I started a book on it, and I never got very far, but it's a very special bird in the inner earth. Uh-oh. That means it's an SL problem. So you can't hear me either, right? Oh, gosh.
Oh, no.
Well, I'm going to put it on pause for a minute. Okay, so we had a sound problem. It was all over SL, but apparently we're back online now. So here we go. Uh-oh. Well, some people have it. So I'm just going to continue. First of all, Drew, who's logged off and trying to get back in now, but she was talking about the Marie birds. Now, see, I wrote about Marie birds in the 1970s, and they were in Lemuria, maybe Atlantis too, but they are also in the inner earth. And I never drew a picture of one, but I really gave a real description of it. It's kind of like a bird of paradise, but it's somewhat different. And the way it acts and everything is different. I can't even remember now. It's been so long. But Drew reads my stuff a lot. And she goes back and reads my old material. And she said that Corey Good had described a Marie bird in the inner earth. At least it sounded like one. And I haven't had an opportunity to listen to what he's saying. He's claiming to have been to the inner earth. I don't know if it's through remote viewing or physically. See, I'm not up on it that much, but David Wilcock has been interviewing him. The man strikes me, both of them, but Corey strikes me as an intelligent, together person. But I haven't, I just haven't had the opportunity to listen to his work. So that's what she was talking about. And I wanted to hear more about it, but I don't think she's on right now. Oh, there she is.
Get back
There
in. I can hear you again, Maya.
Good, good. And here she comes. Drew's coming back. Yay, yay.
Okay, good.
Such a nice big crowd. It's a shame we had to have this sound out. But we seem to be okay at the moment. Can you guys still hear me all right? Just doing a sound check.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So, Drew, can you hear us? Are you back in voice?
Her voice just came on.
Okay, great. Yeah, that was a hairy experience. We don't like our sound being taken away from us. So, Drew, if you have caught your breath, could you tell us just a little bit more about what you were saying? I was sharing with some people a little bit about Corey Good, but I don't know a whole lot about him. But back on the topic of the Marie birds, could you share just a little bit more about that?
Maya, we didn't hear a word that you said about Corey Good there.
Oh, you didn't? Oh.
No. We couldn't hear anything.
Okay.
I could see your thing going, but there was nothing coming out.
Okay. Well, Drew, if you want to talk, why don't you just take over from here?
Okay. Well, Corey Good is, I believe, I know he worked for the government in some fashion. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember exactly what he was doing. But he's another one of those guys that came out of the closet, really knowledgeable man. And in these interviews, he described all these things that were going on with the people he had met in the inner earth, and he described the caverns, which I was going to say that uh, the pictures that they showed, and I'm sure these were all drawn. I mean, he didn't have actual pictures.
Right.
Looked so much like the front of your source edition. The same thing with the spaceships and all this, the big caverns, and he was describing the tigers, and he was describing this Marie bird that looked just like the one you showed in your edition. And he talked about all these different cultures, and they had some drawings of the people like Asian and things like that, just exactly like you've described. And I thought it was so interesting, and just how it really went along with what you had described and talked about as well. So that's really
cool.
about all I had to say. It was
Yeah.
it's very interesting. If any of you get Gaia, or it's Gaia TV now on the internet. It used to be Gaia. All these interviews with David Wilcox are on there, and it's called Cosmic Disclosure. And Corey Good talks. There's several episodes where he talks about the inner earth, and it's very, very interesting, and pretty much like what Maya talks about, and they show what some of the beings look like and what they did and things. It was very good.
Great.
So
Well, that's
that's
good
all
to
I
know,
had to say.
because I was very interested in him, the little bit that I saw, but I just didn't have the time. And you know, I've been in surgery and whatever, so I haven't been caught up on all of this. So we still have a little time. Let me try to get myself gathered back together here, and see what else I wanted to share with you, because there was a few more things that I wanted to bring up just in closing. Okay. Now this I wrote, maybe 5-6 years ago, something like that. As the world ventures ever deeper into this next century, the joyful experience of belonging to spirit and being consumed by the flame of love will no longer be a long-sought desire. It will become an urgent and immediate need. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because I wrote this this was in 2005, okay? That's when I wrote this. And just think of what's going on at the planet right now. As necessary as the air to fill the lungs or food to nourish the body, many will literally perish without it. Yet those who accept and prioritize the needs of the soul will ignite the inner fire and find nothing else necessary in order to sustain the life within them. Now is the time when the seals are coming off the ancient earth scrolls, as with the release of the Opa symbols on the date of the Venus transit 2004 at the summit of Haleakala on Maui. That's a whole other topic, so I won't go into it here. Be prepared to experience seals in your own Akashic vaults to be lifted. The sense of individuation in the human experience is shifting. It will shake and quiver, burst forth like a geyser from the earth. Be ready, be aware, stay present with the moment. I have received that the activation of the newly formed Phi Gate on Kauai will take place in the window of February 27th through March 18th of 2005. Well, that's already happened. This is old news, okay? The final catalyst for this activation will come from an interdimensional nova of the star Spica in the constellation of Virgo. When the central sun of the Earth receives the Spica charge, it will cause the Earth's sunatoma to respond by recoding the raw star dynamic. The raw star charge moves up the Hagia tube through the royal point of the Earth at Mauna Loa on the Big Island. This new code will then find its way up the fire gem matrix to the Phi Gate, then entrance into the Earth being located at Mount Waialeale of Kauai. Now, I have all of these hot linked here, and you're saying, what is Phi Gate? What is I can't read them all to you right now, but I'm going to give you this link to this page, and if you want to go back and read about what all these things are, you can. In the shift between the days June 1st and 2nd of 2005, we will experience the very midpoint, and only on the fourth midpoint, not only of the fourth day, the fourth pulse of light, but also the whole galactic world. Thus, around this time, we will experience very powerful energies bringing about the synthesis of what is really the core content of the current development of consciousness. Now, that I just read, I didn't realize it. That when I said in the shift between, this is from Carl Johann Kalaman. That part was a quote from him. Okay, now we're going back to me again. The north and south poles of the planet form a vortex portal to the interior. However, this vortex, well, I've already read that to you, how it's highly charged and whatever. Thus, when we view the core of the Earth through our electronic and magnetic sensors, we find something quite different than a hollow world with an autonomous sun at its center. Yet there has been a recent discovery by scientists that through my Akashic insight is a connective link between two worlds and a precursor of things to come. I read some of that rather poorly, so let me go back and explain what I'm trying to say there. When our modern scientists try to check what's inside the Earth, they get the core, they get all these things that they decide there's a core mantle and this and that, because they don't have equipment sensitive enough to pick up what's really there with the slight interdimensional shift, all of the heavily charged magnetic ions, all of this stuff that's just out of their field of reference. That was in 2005. However, it's even in 2005, I'm saying, that there's been recent discovery by scientists, and here it is. An odd, previously unknown sphere, some 360 miles in diameter, has been found at the bottom of the Earth. It was detected by Harvard professor and graduate student, blah, blah, blah. It may be the oldest fossil left from the formation of the Earth, says so-and-so, scientist of such and such. Its origin remains unknown, but its presence could change any basic ideas about the origins and history of the planet. Now, that was then. Now, since then, I have read some other things very recently that they're saying that actually some physical scientists, degreed scientists are saying, we think the Earth is hollow. We think it may be true. And I don't have it in front of me to read it to you because I saw it on Facebook and I tried to grab it and I didn't get it. But they're actually saying that now. But in 2005, they were already talking about strange things. So I go back to this article I wrote then in 2005. It was revealed to me that this sphere was discovered by our world as a result of a bleed-through of the energy shells between the dimensional veil that separates the outer from the inner Earth. So what's happening now, see, is those veils are shifting and changing, and we're going to be able to sense more. The scientists on the surface are going to be able to see more about what's in the Earth as well as the stars. And also they have better equipment, too. In order for the ascension process of this planetary whole to be accomplished, the central sun atoma must become more resonant and accessible to the incarnated souls of the Earth in order for the planetary genius to be transferred from the old Earth to the new Earth star. When the sounding of the central sun golden rose reaches a certain stage in progression, a wave of golden light known as the Gayavatha will upwell from the atoma of the sphere and enter all matter, which is then resonant with the 4444 octave of ascension. The golden light, which will be plainly visible to the human eye at that time, contains all the light codes of the Earth, even those portions that will not go through the Stargate. These codes will be impregnated within the ascending matter to be carried as a full hologramic insertion into the new Earth star. I think I read this last time when we were talking about certain things, but I'm going to continue because it's interesting. Next, certain soul groups of this Earth who are about to begin the Exodus will interact as hosts for various species of planetary dissembly. Some of these souls will take up their forms at this time and move as vanguards through the Stargate. Others will pass through the spiraling abysses of lower magnetic energy within the Earth that are being separated from the higher light, allowing that light to be redeemed through the Stargate. These cesspools of lower magnetics will be powerful, pulling on the loosening fibers of linear weave in matter, trying to reorganize it and bring it back into the whole old forms. Old forms. Those ensouled humans who will pass through it must have been prepared for this experience through lifetimes of working with the cellular fire in the body and the magnetic alignments in matter. They will know, they will feel the insertion points through which they will slip through into the core of the earth. Once they have moved through these dark portals, they will use their own magnetic threads, which have now loosened from the old magnetic grids, to attach the planetary genius from the Earth's central sun atoma. With the revealing of the Imagia sphere, we will begin to experience the first stages of the fragrance of the golden rose or the central sun. I don't know what this Imagia sphere is, I'm sorry. I don't know what it is. There will, of course, be more stages of revelation to come. In a recent article on the Phi Gate activation, I wrote, this is recent via 2005, certain crystal formations in the earth will be programmed within the energy release from Spicia. That's that star up there. That is, some crystals on the planet will harbor more of the charge than other elements, and the level of this charge will cause them to connect to the new cosmic alignments of the Phi Gate and the Maiden Grid in a more specific manner. This will include certain crystals already mined and crystalline structures within the brains of the higher evolved mammals. The brains will also, which will absorb the greatest charge, will be the cetaceans, especially the dolphins. Humans will receive the next level of charge. The reason cetaceans will receive more than humans is that they contain holographic brains, and therefore their brains have more crystalline matter. I think I'm going to stop at that point. We've gotten quite a bit of information, and we are at our hour. But if anyone has anything else they want to say, you can say it now. Yay! Okay, Drew.
I think Kadrin wanted to speak. I think he had something to say.
Okay, Kadrin. Did you have something you wanted to say, dear? Whoops. We're not hearing you. Are you talking? It looks like you're talking, Kadrin, and we're not hearing you. Can you hear us? Can you text? Okay. While we're waiting for Kadrin, I'm just going to say briefly that all of these dimensions coming together, and what's going on in the inner earth, it's like...
So dear.
Oh, okay, there he goes. Okay, Kadrin.
Perhaps I can speak now.
Yes, you can.
Yes, okay, great. Okay, so my next session where I'm going to teach karma clearing, or causal body clearing if you prefer, is on March the 24th at 6 a.m. Second Life time. That'll be on the roof of the Brahma Ashram, but I'll put out notices with landmarks to it. If anybody would like a copy of my last talk, there's a PDF that is downloadable from there, and that will tell you how to do a miracle like Jesus Christ did. And I understand from the spirit world I've got that exactly right. I'm in a bit of a depression at the moment, but I hope when that depression clears, I'm going to use the techniques in Sanaya Roman's book Soul Love to establish a link between myself and my higher self, if you see what I mean.
Yes.
So that the higher self can guide the ship, which is something that everybody in the new Earth is going to have to do. So I'll be one of the first to do that. But
well, keep us posted on that. I'd love to hear your progress on it, Kadrin, and thank you for sharing about your gathering.
Okay, I will do.
So, yes, yes.
Before you ran away, you forgot to post the link.
Oh, the link to the article. Yes, right. Thank you for...
Yes, yes.
Okay, I will do that right now. Is this the one? Yes, it is. Okay. So it's going to be in local right there. So in conclusion, I just wanted to say that, you know, the inner earth is us. I mean, it's part of us. It's our belly. You know, it's like you never know what's going on inside your gut. Certainly I don't. But when we get in touch with our gut, life becomes easier on us, doesn't it? You know, colon cleansings and everything. And so it's the same thing with getting in touch with our gut in the inner earth. I mean, that's literally, you know, our insides. And that's where all the chakras are. The chakras are inside the earth. We have chakra points on the outer earth, but they've aligned to different grid formations and things. They aren't the chakras, you know? And so we're getting in touch with the chakras in the inner earth. We're getting in touch with our chakras. We get in touch with the gut in inner earth. We're getting in touch with our gut. You know, it's like an expanded version of our body. So I just was going to say that to end. And thank you all for being here. I'm sorry we had a bit of a problem with the voice and everything, but it all worked out. And it was a great group. Gosh, just wonderful to have you all here with me today. So appreciate it.